Welcome to the Tech Exits Podcast. In today's Seller's Corner, we connect with CEOs and founders who built and successfully sold their companies, picking their brains about the good, the bad, and the ugly from their experience. In this episode, we're speaking with Mark Nardone, founder and president of Blue Cow Software, a company that provides modern software solutions for fuel delivery and propane businesses across the United States. After years of steady growth, Mark began planning an eventual exit. A failed early attempt revealed how challenging the process could be without expert guidance, leading him to partner with Quorum Group, who helped him refine his strategy, identify the right buyers, and ultimately secure a significantly stronger deal. Today, we'll hear how Mark approached building Blue Cow with long-term vision, why he chose Quorum as his M&A advisor, and what it took to recover from that initial false start. This is an honest conversation about preparation, execution, and the value of having the right team beside you when the stakes are high. Let's begin. To start off, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Mark Nardone. I'm president of Blue Cow Software.
Tell me a little bit about how you got involved in the propane, gas, and energy sector.
I grew up and when I was in high school, my father owned a construction company for years and actually started a fuel delivery business back in high school. At that point, I knew I didn't want to be involved in either of those businesses and went off to college. While in college, they needed some help with the fuel business and I needed some reports out of it. I started to create them some reports that they needed. And at one point in time, I just realized that, you know what, I think I could pretty much create everything that's in that software for them, and it would be better than what they had. And so during one of my vacation weeks, I actually started tinkering, and by the end of the week, pretty much had something ready that proved that the concept would work. And we, shortly after that, started using the software at the fuel business. I finally graduated college, and at that point, decided that it made sense to market the software, and so that's what we did.
And then you worked for a different company, right?
Yeah. So what happened was we started that initial business, ran it for 7 years. That first business ran. We had about 175 to 200 customers throughout the United States, and using that software. As I touched on earlier, it had some limitations based on the technology we were using. And so when we started Blue Cow Software, it was really a ability to, kind of learn from your mistakes of doing something the first time and then redoing it and really come up with a great product the next time around.
Tell me about the name Blue Cow Software.
Great question. We probably the most asked question we've had over the years is what's with that name, and interestingly, through that whole process, when I decided to start the new business, to be honest, the most difficult thing was coming up with the name of the software company. And ultimately, I failed at coming up with the name. And so one day we were going on vacation. I was going on vacation with my family. We were driving in New Hampshire, and we had a summer home there. And so we were driving to the summer home, and we would drive by the same pasture with the same cows in that pasture every week. And at the time, my daughter was probably 2 or 3 at the time, and we were driving by, and I was at wit's end trying to think of a name and couldn't. And so we're driving down the street, and my wife and I were in the front seats, my 2 kids were in the back seats, and we would just drive by a street name and a business, and we would try to mesh those names together and come up with something, and we were just not getting anywhere. And finally, we drove past the pasture, and my daughter in the background, again, who's like 2 or 3, was like, "Daddy, cows!" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, great, honey, whatever." And sometimes you just don't want to put a whole lot of attention into the kids because you're busy doing something. And but instead of being too rude, I thought, okay, honey, what color are these cows over there? And for whatever reason, she blurted out blue, and we sort of chuckled a bit, and my wife, who was driving at the time, was like, "You should name the business Blue Cow Software." And I said, "That is the worst idea I've ever heard. I'm looking for a successful business that conveys, strength and authority and confidence. And some comical name of Blue Cow Software is terrible. And that weekend, we were with my sister-in-law's family, and I thought for sure someone was going to come up with a better name than Blue Cow Software. And so we got there, and my wife was all excited to tell them the story. She tells it to her sister and their family, and I thought for sure they were going to hate the idea. And of course, they loved it, and so it kind of grew on me. And it turned out our very first customer that joined us was by we went to a trade show in the industry, because we were so new to join that trade show that they put our name on a billboard, or not a billboard, a poster when you first walked into the trade show. And someone saw Blue Cow Software and felt they just had to go over and see what the heck this company was. And so that company marched over, talked to us, and ended up being our first customer that first year, or our first customer that wasn't someone that we had already had a relationship before.
How long did you work in building up Blue Cow, and how many years did it take for you to come to the conclusion, I want to sell?
Great question. So we started Blue Cow Software in 2004, and so probably about 2-3 years ago was when I started to think about what my exit strategy would be. And right, obviously, one option is hand the business over to the kids, but our kids just happen, they have zero interest in doing it. And that was evident at the time. So I started to think about, what that next step was. And so my plan was obviously going to be, find someone who would want to purchase the business. And I just happen to be a planner. I tend to look ahead. And so again, I was looking at, kind of let me start looking at where I would want to be, 5 years from now, or maybe 7 years from now. And that way, if there's steps I should be doing right now to make my business more valuable, I should start doing that stuff now. And that way, when it is time to sell, the business is going to be worth more, and it's going to be more attractive. So instead of, trying to find, maybe, a straw in a haystack, there could be a lot of suitors that are looking for the business. And so I went to a M&A session and from Quorum Group, and really got a good understanding of, what I needed to do, and what mattered and what didn't matter, and really, an education on a whole new process of, what the business needed to do. And so from that, we were able to make some changes, and then, kind of fast forwarding. I might be getting ahead of us here, but I had a 5 or 7 year plan, but we had someone approach us after only probably 1 or 2 years, or 1.5, 2 years, and then we decided maybe it was a good time to kind of make the transition at that point.
Did you have any doubts while you were going through the process?
No, I think at the beginning, there were times. I mean, Martin and I didn't always agree 100% of the time. There was a situation towards the end of the deal closing where Martin was being a lot more aggressive than I was necessarily comfortable with. It's like marriage, right? I mean, you don't marry someone and never have a fight with that person. And not that Martin and I ever had a fight, but we would have, minor disagreements. And did we always see perfectly eye to eye? No. Did I understand that, he was always working for my best interest, and that he had a lot more experience in these things than I did? Yeah. And one of the things Martin told me at the very beginning is that is going to happen, right? That there's going to be some disagreements on both sides. It's going to get heated, and the great part of having someone like Martin is I can pull myself out, or Martin pulls me out of it, and he has that difficult conversation with them, and it comes from him, not necessarily from me, and sort of shelters me from the process, and so that happened multiple times throughout the process. And again, it was one of those great things. Looking back, it was like, okay, it was great that my surrogate could take over, if you will, and deal with this problem, because I'm tired of trying to fight the battle, or I don't want to fight the battle, or again, you just don't want it to get too contentious between the two parties, because at the end of it all, it's not like I was walking away and didn't care. It was, I had to work with these people when I was done. So yeah, there's a lot of pieces like that just made the having Quorum Group in my corner incredibly valuable.
Is there anything that I didn't ask that you think is worth mentioning?
No, I think that's good. If I can tend to get a little wordy, so if you have any other follow-up questions, just let me know.
Thank you for speaking with us today, Mark. Thank you for joining us today. Are you considering selling your tech company? Head over to quorumgroup.com, our tech exit sponsor. If you'd like to learn more about selling your tech company, join us at one of our Tech M&A Masterclass events. Attendees of the Tech M&A Masterclass will gain practical knowledge on how to achieve the maximum valuation for their company gained through expert-guided workshops, hands-on exercises, and M&A case studies, or online through our virtual conference and webcasts. Head over to wfs.com for more details. We'll see you again for the next episode.